Hear my song for Stephen Lawrence, a fine young British boy. Brought up
a few metres from where Stephen Lawrence died, folk musician Jim Radford sings his song for Stephen.
He did no harm to anyone.
He's one of many in Eltham who feel this is a place with an open wound.
Justice for the Stephen Lawrence case would just help to, to put away the stereotypes of what Eltham is.
It's a reminder to people that there is still racism around communities.
But they murdered him in Eltham for the colour of his skin. It happened on my beat, very close to where I live and sing, and it angered and grieved me as much as it did millions of other people, I suppose.
Few wouldn't have been appalled by the killer's thirst for racist violence, laid bare in this police surveillance footage filmed at Gary Dobson's flat after Stephen Lawrence was killed.
I'm telling you, they'll take him skin the black alive, torture him, set him alive.
So who were the men who felt such hatred? Gary Dobson was 17 years old when Stephen Lawrence died. He lived with his parents on Eltham's Brook estate. David Norris grew up nearby in an affluent part of Chislehurst. Both men had been accused of being involved in racist incidents before. In the early 90s, the group was already notorious locally. Gang members referred to themselves as the Krays. They were known for carrying knives and being threatening. And even now, 18 years on, some of those I've spoken to here are reluctant to talk about them or their associates out of fear. Much of that has to do with this man, David Norris's father, Clifford, a gangster who's been in prison for drug dealing. The Macpherson inquiry branded him an evil influence, and some believe he coached his son and the other suspects ahead of their police interviews. But the killer's home lives tell only part of the story. There were wider social factors at work too. Tensions in areas on the outskirts of London had been rising, and in the 2 years before Stephen's death, there were 3 other racist murders in the area around Eltham.
Eltham's become synonymous with a racist place, That misrepresents the complexity of what it means to live in a place like this, It needs to be remembered too about how many people went to the police to try and do the right thing, to speak with their consciences about what they knew and what they'd heard about the people involved in this murder.
And today, that same community shared its relief at the guilty verdicts.
I felt like it's hanging over the town for a long time now, so quite frankly, I think if justice has been served, that's a good thing.
If they're guilty, then it's the way it should be. That sort of thing should be cut out, so it's bad all round, really.
I'm just overwhelmed and very happy that justice has been served.
This is a place which has worked hard to change its image and move on. The benefits are felt by many of the young people at this youth centre who are optimistic about the future.
From the early parts of when I was living here, you couldn't really be in Eltham after sort of 10:30, 11, with the pubs closing. But now, you walk through Eltham, you see quite a diverse, faces, black, white, of all creeds really. So on the face of it, it's changed quite drastically. People that have helped to put those guys behind bars are not just black people, So it will show that we can all move together in one and, put that horrible thing behind us. And I think most importantly, that Stephen's family can get, a bit of closure and justice is served.
There is a sense that this verdict will finally allow Eltham to leave the past behind. Few can believe it's taken 18 years. Well, just across the road from where I am now, in the spot where Stephen died, there is a plaque in his memory. Tonight, fresh flowers have been laid there. A sign, I think, of just how emotional this case is for this community still. And someone we can talk to about that a bit more is the local MP, Clive Efford. Thanks very much for joining us. Can you sum up what this case has meant for Eltham over the last 18 years?
Well, obviously the community were very sympathetic with the parents who were bereaved of their son being murdered in the way that he was, in a completely unprovoked attack, like any decent community would be. But I think there was a lot of anger in the way that the community was portrayed in the immediate aftermath and around the initial inquiry, where it was implied that the community had clammed up and hadn't come forwards and given any evidence. But the publication of the Macpherson inquiry report demonstrated that a lot of people in fact had come forward and helped. So I think people feel angry about that.
And do you think that this verdict today will allow things to move on a bit more than they have so far?
I think so. I think McPherson was a big watershed for Eltham because, it, as I say, it exonerated them in the sense that people did try to help at the time. People were very sympathetic. And this community, you know, at the time we were dealing with a lot of negative reporting in the media, came together, and I chaired several meetings involving lots of community groups from across Eltham who wanted to confront the issues and talk about them. And I was really proud of them, the way they entered into that discussion.
We know, of course, that there were 5 main suspects originally. Only 2 people have been found guilty today. What do you want to see happen now?
Well, it was a surprise when the forensics showed up that there was enough to go for another prosecution. So if there is any evidence, any leads that the police have, I sincerely hope that they are pursuing them and that we may see further closure, because this is not a complete set of justice today. There were 5 or 6 people involved, and there are more people to be brought to justice.
Clive Efford, thank you very much. Well, it is unclear what, if anything, will happen now, but there is certainly a sense here tonight that this could be the beginning of the end.
Catherine, thank you. Other news now, and strong winds have caused damage